Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see how to install Kali Linux on VMware. So we have here an ESXi host on our vSphere client. And in this, we are going to install a Kali Linux machine. Now we already have multiple virtual machines that are already installed and running on our ESXi host. But in this case, we are going to try to deploy a new version, a new image, a new virtual machine of Kali Linux. You can either go ahead and right click to create a virtual machine, or you can use this button that you see here, create or register VM, to initiate the wizard to install the virtual machine. We'll now click on this button to initiate the wizard. Now first we choose the option to create a new virtual machine, click on next. In the name of the guest operating system and the name of the virtual machine, we are going to set it to, let's say, Kali Demo. And as part of the guest OS family, we'll select Linux. Now, when you select Linux, there are different Linux versions that are available to be chosen. But note that there's no Kali Linux in this list. So what we are going to do is we are going to select Other Linux, which is 64-bit. Remember, we are going to install the 64-bit of Kali Linux in this demo. Now we have selected Other Linux 64-bit, click on Next. We'll select the storage. So in this case, our data store is a 2 TB storage in which there is 1 TB storage which is already available and free. We'll click on Next. And now the settings that are required to deploy this virtual machine is something that is required. So we'll select the CPU, let's say, to 4 vCPUs. And from the memory perspective, we are going to set it to, let's say, 16 gig. So 16 GB. And the storage, I would recommend at least set it to 80 gig storage as part of your hard drive. Now, then if we scroll down, we can see the option for network adapter. You have options to add one or more network adapters to the existing one, but by default, the installation will come with one network adapter. Now, how I usually set up my lab environment is I try to keep two network interfaces, one which is connecting to my private subnet, which is where I run most of the demos, and another one which is connected to the public internet or the public IP, which allows me to access this virtual machine across the internet. So it's totally up to you how you want to set it up. If you have different networks available with you, use that. Otherwise, go for your private network. Now, in this case, I have a private network which is named VM network, which is something you will notice very common with your VMware deployments. It's a default network name, so I'll select the VM network. I'm not selecting the public IP network. And as part of the CD drive, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the data store ISO file. Now, for this data store ISO file, I usually like to structure my directory on the on VMware ESXi host. What I usually do is I create different directory for images or operating system files and things like that. So in this case, you will notice there's a folder for operating systems, and in this folder you will notice various operating system files that I use for demonstration purpose. So in this case, either if the file does not exist, go to the Kali Linux website. What you could simply do is go to Google and search for Kali Linux download. Now, I'll guide you through the various versions of Kali Linux that are available for download and to be used with your setup. So we click on this link. Now, if you first look at this link, there are different type of installer images that are available. Now there's installer images, there are virtual machines, there are ARM based deployment installer packages, there are a few for mobile and then for cloud, right? So what we are going to do is going to select virtual machines, either this one or we can use the installer images. Either of those methods should work for us. So let's say if we go to virtual machines, now here for our VMware, we have the file that you can download from here directly. If you are running a different virtualization platform like VirtualBox or Hyper-V or KVM, in that case you can use the other images that are seen on the screen. In this case you have VMware, VirtualBox, Hyper-V, and QEMU. Now QEMU is something that you can run. You can virtualize your image. You will get a QCOW2 image for download, and you can run it with your KVM. But in this scenario, because we are using VMware, so we are going to simply download the VMware ISO file. Okay. Since it is already downloaded, we'll get back to our VMware installer wizard, and here we have our Kali Linux ISO image. Now we select the Kali Linux ISO image, right? Make sure you have this connect checkboxes checked for both the network as well as the CD DVD drive, and then click on next. Now once you are done, make sure you have all the settings that you need to get this to get this virtual machine ready for the installation of Kali Linux. Okay, click on finish. Right, and you will see that the Kali Linux or Kali demo named virtual machine is now available. You will see that the use space is 0 because the guest operating system is still not installed. Right, the Kali Linux installation has not happened yet. So click on this Kali demo, and then you will see a thumbnail for the player where you will see the whole installation happening. So click on that play button that you see, and a pop-up window is going to open, which is going to show you the installer for Kali Linux. Now I prefer for Kali Linux a graphical installer. All right, so select the first option, and the installer will start running on its own. So what we are going to do is click on enter, and this should begin the installation. Now there are a few things that the installer is going to ask, like the language, country, and things like that. So click continue, selected English, United States, and we are going to use the keyboard as American English. Continue, and then it's trying to detect the hardware and scanning the media. It's going to again ask a few more questions with regards to how you want the setup to be. So we'll get to that screen in a moment. All right. So right now it's detecting the network interface, and then it's trying to attempt to configure the interfaces through DHCP. Right. We did not configure any static IP addresses. Again, there was no option as well. So now it's going to ask. It's asking to enter the host name for the system. What I can say is I can name it Kali demo, right? And click continue. The domain name, you can set your own domain name. Again, if you are deploying Kali Linux in your organization environment, or if you have a home lab setup and that is having a domain attached to it. But if it's not, then you can use your own name or your alias .local. So what I usually prefer for myself is venugini.local, right? And click continue. Now it's asking for the user credentials or name of the user. The first thing, so I'm going to say Chini. All right. The user account name is going to be the same. Click next, enter the password. All right. Keep your password secure. That's a usual recommendation. Pacific time. Click continue. It's trying to configure the clock and detect the disk. So now it's going to ask you about the partition and things like that. So let's wait for that screen to pop up. Okay. So there are different options. One is manual. There is guided use entire disk. There's also guided use entire disk and set up LVM. I prefer to go with use guided use entire disk and set up LVM. We are going to talk about the different partitions in Linux in a different video, but in this case, just for the installation purpose, use the LVM option. Okay, it's showing you the amount of storage it has. It's 85.9 gig. Click continue, and then it's going to ask that, do you want all the file systems in one partition? If you're a new user, go for this. If you are, an experienced user, an advanced level user, or mid to advanced level user, then better go for separate home and var directories. For the beginners, I'm going to set all files in one partition. So this option is already selected. Click continue and select the yes option that we want to write the changes to the disk and configure LVM. So click continue, yes, continue, and finally it's showing you this is what is going to happen. So you have your root, LV root, here's your swap, and write the changes. Yes, I want to write the changes. Finally click again on the continue, and I believe that's done. So now it's the process of installing the whole software packages that you have that comes along with the Kali Linux onto the system. So let's wait for a few minutes to have this set up, and then we should pretty much be done with it. Alright, so currently it's installing the base system, the base packages that are required for the operating system. There'll be few other packages that it's going to install, all the different tools that are available as part of Kali Linux package. Those are going to be installed next. So, these are the various options. Now, Kali Linux desktop environment comes with a default XFCE desktop environment. I would recommend go with that, but if you need a different environment or you're more comfortable with Genome or KDE Plasma, go for those options. But I personally prefer XFCE, which is the default option. So I'll click continue again, and then now it's going to install all the different packages and softwares. So we'll kind of fast forward it to make sure that the installation is completed. The installation is still continuing even after a few minutes, so we'll give it another few minutes, and we'll fast forward again till the end of the installation. So we are now in the final few steps or final stages of the installation. It's now trying to configure the menu items and other applications with the initial settings. Should be done in another 2 or 3 minutes. So it's pretty much done now. It's now doing another final verification and settings. It's now asking to install the grub bootloader. You're going to go with the default option, which is yes. So we'll click on yes, continue, and we'll select the drive that we have already installed. Click continue. That's going to set up that's going to be used for the grub bootloader, and that's the drive, that's the storage volume which will be used for that. And now it's finishing up the installation. The installation is now complete. We'll now click on continue, which will reboot the virtual machine. So continue, and it's unmounting the CD-ROM DVD drive or the ISO file, and we are going to, this is our boot options. We are going to go with the Kali Linux that has been installed, and this is our login window that we are going to see now. So we are going to enter our credentials. So Genie, that's the username that we set, and I'm going to enter my secret password, and now you're going to see the user interface of Kali Linux. So this is how you can simply install Kali Linux in your VMware virtual machine. All right. Now you can use your VMware or ESXi host, which is set up on a server, or you can use another hypervisor like KVM or Oracle's VirtualBox to do the installation on your local machine, your local laptop. So choose one of the options and install Kali Linux. We'll talk about various tools that are available with Kali Linux in the next video.